Okay, Assalamualaikum. Good morning and salam Ramadan to all participants and as well as our honorable speaker for today's workshop. Welcome to 2024 CAMS workshop organized by Academic Training Unit. Thank you for joining our workshop entitled Fostering Design Research Skills Through Appreciation of Cultural Diversity with Real-Life Intercultural Experiences. And today we bring our honorable speaker from Teles University, Encik Muhammad Asriza Razali. He is from the Design School Faculty of Innovation and Technology, Teles University. He is also hold the Master of Corporate Communication from University Malaysia Putra Malaysia, and a Bachelor of Multimedia with honors Media Innovation from MMU. His expertise is in intercultural design, culturally responsive teaching, experiential learning, graphic communication design, graphic design education, experiential learning, design thinking, communication design, education media, and reflective learning. So without further ado, I would like to invite Encik Muhammad Asrizal to start his sharing. Before that, attention to participants. If you have any query, you can unmute your microphone or you can state the question in the chat room. So without further ado, I would like to pass this workshop to Encik Asrizal. Over to you, Encik Asrizal.
Alright, terima kasih Dr. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam Ramadan dan salam sejahtera. Before saya start, saya juga nak introduce, saya ada my co-researcher, which is also my co-lecturer here, Noranis is here. So some parts of my presentation, Noranis akan cover sikit, especially on the framework and whatnot. Okay, so let me just go back and share my screen. Sebelum tu, just a little bit of introduction. This module, intercultural design, is a module actually. So it's intercultural design. It's been around since I think quite some time. I think more than 10 years. I took over the module in 2016. So then it come about. I have always interested and passionate in providing outside the four walls of classroom settings. So teaching and learning, I believe, can also take place outside of the four walls of lecture theatres, of classroom studios, and then there will be some values to it. But the problem is that it's quite difficult to quantify. So hence my research since then has been tailored around intercultural experience and how do we foster design research skills. Yeah, so particularly today, I'm going to go just share a little bit of this topic. So fostering design research skills through appreciation of cultural diversity with real-life intercultural experiences. Okay, basically intercultural design, like I said, is a module we offered to our year 1 student in Bachelor of Design in Creative Media. And also this module is also offered in Teles University, is also offered as an elective, meaning we also have students from other faculties or other programs who taking in as their elective. So we have students from mass communication, from advertising, broadcasting, fashion, culinary, computer science. So you get slightly wide, diverse profile backgrounds of student. And what we do is we provide students with the opportunity to understand the role of design and designing in a wider cultural, political, and social context. And what our aim is to introduce students to local and global design issues through engagement with either agencies or either groups of people or other cultures, which can also present opportunities for collaboration. So at the end of their studies, students will produce many type of artworks that range either digitally or physically, from installation, digital installation, animation, photography, among others. I will also be able to share a little bit of, I think I'll show 3 works today. So in the module that was given out by students, so this is what I've just mentioned just now. So we facilitate direct interaction with designers, artists, external agencies, and fellow students from Design Education Institute. But the problem come about, is all went fine from 2016 until we all know 18th of March 2020, what happened. So that's when it took a turn. So we are not able to do any real life intercultural experience. So during those, we have to rework, on which I've also done a research on that. So we have to, how do we replace the intercultural experience with ethnography, internet research? Yeah, but that's on another subject. So in 2022, we are able to resume and arrange excursions abroad again, and allowing students to have real life intercultural experience. Yeah, so part of our in our research, so experiential learning. So what is experiential learning? We took a model from COP 1984, experiential learning, and it's been in 2014. So we come up, myself, Noranis, and also Dr. Nozihan, we say that experiential learning is crucial to the learner's progress, and it takes place when these 4 things are checked. So when you are involved in an activity, he or she looks back and evaluates it and determine what was useful or important to remember, and use this information to perform another activity. So in this context and setting, it is to perform, to produce design related or graphic related works. Yeah, so we have also some other research that we have done, some literature that we have found on experiential learning. Chavan 2011 also said that experiential learning is a direct encounters with the phenomena being studied, rather than thinking or considering the possibility of doing something about it. Schwartz 2012 says that students hold much of the responsibility in the learning process, whereby they manage their own learning rather than being told what to do and when to do it. So we are moving from the traditional concept of teaching and learning. Lewis and William goes way back in 1994, describe new skills, new attitudes, or new ways of thinking are developed through experiential education, where it immerses learners in an experience, then encourage reflection about the experience. So they immerse themselves and then they reflect on it. So this is us. This is in 2020, just before the 18th of March. We went February 2020. I brought 87 students, 87 students. This is us in Tokyo University of Technology. So we did, among other things that we do in Tokyo, we did some programs, half a day program with the students from, Japanese student from Tokyo University of Technology, which is also our good partner here at Taylor's. So this is 2019, also in Tokyo. So yes, we have slightly lesser student. So we, in the couple of years, including very recently in February 2024, we have always been to Japan. Some of the places that we've been to Tokyo, we've been to Osaka, we've been to Seoul, Korea, Hong Kong, but a couple of times we go back to Japan. I'll tell you why after this. Why Japan? So, some other literatures that we found is that good designers' perception reflect on awareness of the physical surrounding, cultural, metaphoric relationship, and these observations allow designers to channel their artistic creations that connect and communicate with the audience. So we have evidence that studies have shown that strong observation skills were linked to greater creativity, originality, and flexible thinking. And then people with such robust skill, whether inherent or learned through extensive training, showed superior creativity. Yeah, so this is the summary of COP's Learning Style Index. So it starts with concrete experience where you feel, and then you do a reflective observation. You watch by watching, so you reflect and observe by watching. From there, from you feel, you watch, and then you will then conceptualize and thinking of it, and then active experimentation. So this is the the model that we base this research. So some of the recurring problems recurring problems and patterns that we found with students, where the typical design process taught students was to generally assume to produce effective analysis of problem and create an innovative solution to it. So the design thinking process is that you empathize, and then you define. From define, you ideate, and then come up with a prototype, and then you test the prototype. So this is the typical design thinking process. Student tendency is to reverse engineer the design process, prevent them from being able to train their research skill properly, and in order to empathize with the subject matter and apply critical thinking to create effective design. So what is this is that we noticed that students have difficulty in coming up with the proper research in order to come up with an effective design or effective output from it. So they tend to think about the output, and then only they reverse engineer it from there. So we found that it's common. It's very common. It's very common occurrence. So we're trying to move away from this, okay, with this research. So what is our teaching strategy? So we enforce real life intercultural experience. Okay, how do we do that? We through site visits. So we bring them outside. We have a process, step-by-step process, and they have to apply a proper research skills. Okay, so when we brought them out, and then it forces them to critically think, challenge them to be outside of their comfort zone because they are a new environment, a new place. And then we also found out that with that, it heightened their design senses and sensitivity for cultural diversity and produce better outputs, as compared to students who just within the classroom environment only. Yep. Can you just give me 30 seconds? Hold on, yeah. Okay, sorry. So this is a video. I'm not sure whether you guys can, that was done by our student. I think there's no sound. So this is basically just a recap video that was done by our students. So we went to museums, we went to site visits. Right? So what happened was every year we give them a theme. Sometimes it's very recently we give them a theme of cultural sensitivity. We give them heritage, old versus new. So we change it from year on year because the module is only offered once a year. So this is in Tokyo. So you can see that in order for us to get students outside of their comfort zone, we don't use any proper we don't use any travel agents. We use solely public transportation, just to get them to immerse in the culture. I arrange everything on my own. We don't from the flight, from the accommodation, all the museums visits, and so on. So that forces them to observe, forces them to be critical about their surrounding. Obviously we went to just a couple of museums, but mostly we give them an opportunity to go and immerse in the culture, just to experience the culture. So because that is the important part. So we give them a certain task that they need to complete, certain data that they need to collect, and then they need to observe. Okay, so this is roughly what we present to the school. So we typically we go for about 6 days, 5 nights, and then 2 or 3 lecturers depending on the student numbers. So we stated the learning objectives. So what are the learning objectives of this educational trip? So critical thinking, apply various design skills, experimental or innovative, understand another culture within the context of graphic design, and enhance students' understanding and outlook of global design. So this is the outcome while they are there on site. So we give them what do they need to do, facilitate student learning and research process, field study, then produce a visual outcome that encompasses the understanding experience and reflects their ability to think critically about culture and design issue. So these are some of the places that we've been. So we did some digital design, the shrine and the university visit. So this is roughly the itinerary. So you can see that a lot of street and city exploration at areas. At the same time, they can also go other areas that is related to their proposed topic that they want to do. Okay. Yeah. So I think this part I pass to Miss Noranis. Miss Noranis, are you here?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Good.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. I'll just continue a bit about the framework that we employed for this study and also employed in class as well, in a way to encourage our students to apply research skills in the making of the outcome. So number one here is that basically we all know, and I think that's the reason why we are all here today, macam mana kita nak engage student to make them feel more motivated to do research in their studies, especially for us when it comes to designing an output. A lot of them tend to design first and then think about how they come to the conclusion later. So what happened here is that we concentrate more on, especially for this module, the appreciation for cultural diversity, where students are given the focus to either break down artifacts, that means physical aspect of the culture and product, and then expand it into something that is more, focus it into something more implicit. So this way, by giving them something tactile and then asking them to reconsider the significance of each of these cultural elements, we in a way force them to think back about why certain aspect in culture become the way they are. Next slide, please. So, no, go back. So what happened here is that through real life intercultural experiences, especially when we take them outside of their comfort zone, in this case, we either take them abroad with us to travel, or we also encourage them to go out and gather information on their own. These experiences actually forces them to practice their research skills and then impose a challenge on how to manage it efficiently as well, especially for those who are with us during the limited time during travel time. And it forces them to pay attention much more closer to their surrounding through observation, and at the same time doing a lot of experiential study through as well as interacting with the locals via communication. So from here, they have to come up with a rationale or an idea on how are they able to explain certain artifact into a basic assumption, implicit ideas, and then that implicit idea can be expanded further back into the artifacts. Next slide. So the significance here lies in the aspect that the dual breakdown between focus and the breakdown of the cultural value to the artifact perspective, the students are able to identify what design elements reside in the artifact and how does it contributes to the value, to the significance of that particular culture. And this is not only limited to the typical culture in sociology, but also in political sphere as well as lifestyle as well. Next slide. Right. So students who went out to gather data on site, we noticed that because they had direct engagement with these foreign agencies and communities, and they have to interact, I mean, they have to be brave and interact, they are able to foster much more stronger set of design research skill in a way that the rationale of their project is much more articulated, as well as the idea, the reason why they come up with certain project is much more clearer compared to those who actually did their research via online. So certain groups of people, like for example, maybe they are still in Malaysia, but they are doing their research about the Songkran festival in Thailand. They are not able to be there. So you get to see a different set of level in terms of articulation of the research skill, as well as the rationale of the project output, and ultimately the creation of the output as well. So this could be traced down to the lack of encounters with real life intercultural experiences compared to their counterparts who actually went out there to experience such environment. They are able to appreciate these elements much better. So in terms of making sure that our students are able to identify what are the aspects that they have to watch out for and have to watch out for and have to analyze in their research, is that if we look into this pyramid chart here, we emphasize that they can always start from values and then work their way down into tools and technology, or find an artifacts and then break down the ideas down to the values. So by presenting this to the student, they are able to identify what are the parts in the cultural elements that they have to research on, and they have to devise way to do the data gathering. For example, they have to find out experts, and then they have to arrange interviews, and they have to create questionnaire, and then find ways to get volunteers to answer the question. This may sound heavy, but because this is a group work, we were quite surprised that despite the time constraint, they are still able to do that in spite of being in a foreign environment. Next. So I'll return this presentation back to Mr. Asrizal for him to do the conclusion.
Yeah. So we have had an experience of doing this physically, meaning bringing students out on site. But we also, at the same time, we also have experience in the 2 years of the pandemic where we were in the lockdown, where we have to reinvent our teaching strategy. So we provide them with, or we guide them with ethnography, internet research, and AR, VR, 360 videos that they can use to supplement their research and output. So the conclusion is, while digital online tools do provide the convenience of cost, accessibility, technology, and satisfaction of immersion, from the results that we gathered, especially in terms of the reflection, in terms of the output itself, the quality of the output, the result indicates that the appreciation of cultural diversity from the real life experience help foster insightful design research skills and encourage independent self-learning in students. This is because they are forced to observe, they are forced to immerse themselves in the culture. We've also mixed them up because it's also a group setting in terms of the project delivery, but we mix them up from because we have we are lucky enough, we have students from, like I mentioned just now, from a wide range of programs. So we mix them up. So when you mix them up, they have a different POV, different point of view, different perspectives in terms of design, different perspectives of culture. Sometimes you also get students from a wide diverse of cultures. So we have Malaysian student, we have Indonesian, we have from Maldives, Korea, and so on. So yeah, so that is the conclusion of the research. I think that would be, yeah. So I will show a student sample now. Let me just, sorry. Okay, you guys can see, right? Can see my screen. Okay, so this, let me just full screen it.
Yes, we can see the student sample.
Yeah.
Mr. Asrizal, yes.
Okay, so this is a pair project. That means we pair them up, the two of them. So they start with the theme that we give them. So in this particular round, for this, we give them heritage. We just give, usually the theme, we give it very broad, so as not to limit their exploration. So then they go and start. Our semesters that we run, this module is the short semesters. We only have 7 weeks with them. So in the first 3 weeks, what they do, they go and research. They come up with a basic assumptions of what are their proposed topics, or what are the, like this in cultural heritage. So they go and find the meanings, they go and research. So then they go and go a little bit narrowed down. So they go and heritage in Japanese culture. So what is heritage? So they come up with a proposal. So what are the ideas? So you can see from here, it is still very much output based, or I will call it in my class, I say media and channel based. So, oh, we want to do pottery, painting, and whatnot. So that's not how it's supposed to be. So it's supposed to do research first, then only we find out what is the suitable and appropriate outcome later on. Yeah, so they go and research ideas, sketches. So they do some very, very rough sketches from the assumptions or from their research proposal, some visual references that they have. We ask them to provide 3 proposals. So they go and, the second one is geisha. So they do some research a little bit about geisha. There's also kabuki. Then comes to data collection. So we went to Osaka and they went to Kyoto. So they go and observe. So sometimes you'll get what is the assumption from internet research and what is experience on the ground could be very different or could be very similar. So we have evidence of this. So yeah, so they have Kyoto holds 5 geisha dances per year. Yeah, so they go and spot some geisha through the streets of Kyoto. They also research about the clothings. They go find some brochures, design, or leaflets that they can find. Went to museums and go and find a little bit information about geisha. Yeah, so this is the poster, the mask. So these are all their data collection. So observation. And then they were lucky enough, when we went there, they found a show, geisha and samurai show and kabuki show. So they went again and they were observed. So they observe. So they study the clothings, study the dance, the types of dance, the performance. Yeah, so these are the students. So from there, then they start develop. So they come back, they compile their data collection, and then they start formulating or thinking about what are the message that they want to try to deliver, and then what is the most appropriate media channels to deliver it to. So so we went through all these ideas. So they ended up with a movement of the dance. Actually, geisha dance, they have 5 types of movements. Okay, and each movement in the dance, there are a certain meaning of it, there's a certain purpose of it. There's certain certain symbols, and the way of why they do that. So then we with the help of the lecturers, we narrow it down again. So they come up with the 5. So we have Miyako Odori, Kyo Odori, Kitano Odori, Gion Odori, and Yomogawa Idori. So then they start sketching again. So Miyako Odori. So they find the form. So in the installation mimic geisha kneeling down in her kimono. Kyo Odori twist, continue twisting at different speed, level, and position. Kitano, Kamogawa, and Gion. So then they decided, okay, we want to do an installation. So, okay, so they start doing it with cardboards. So the final output looks, something like this. So there are 5 installations. So just to represent the 5 movement, the geisha dance movement. Yeah, so this is one. The other one, the second one, so this is, we give them another different theme, which is simplicity. So they took on that theme. So they go and find the meaning of it, go and study Japan history, because some of them have never been to Japan before. So in some of the trips, it's actually their first time. Cultural identity. So these are all assumptions from ethnography research. So aesthetic principles of simplicity. So they again do an assumption. They find some what is the relation of simplicity to Japanese culture. So they found Kanso, Fukinsei, Shizen, Yugen, and so on. So then the Zen circle. So then they go and data collection. So data collection, they are quite focused. So they study calligraphy, colors, and icons. So luckily enough, we also found one exhibition, calligraphy exhibition. By accident, we found on the way to some of the destinations. Say, oh, okay, there's an exhibition here, so they're able to study it. So this is the ink and gold paintings. So they collect, they study colors. So how does in print form or in digital form? So what kind of colors that reflect simplicity? Then they found, and then in terms of icons, so how does in Japanese culture they use icons? Then they start void some ideation. What are the ideas that they are not usable? So they come up with emojis. So they do a little bit in-depth research of emojis. So the finalized concept is because one of the values in simplicity they found in Japanese is that silence. So they also use the icons that they research to come up with symbols. And then they also found that 8 is a lucky number in Japan. Then they also found from simplicity, there's also a very famous Japanese proverbs. So what they do, they combine the proverb and with the ideas of symbols and all the elements that comes in between. So they come up with 8, because 8 is a lucky number in Japan. So they use 8 proverbs. They go and study materials relating to proverbs. Then they come up with wooden flashcards. So this is the reference of flashcards. Yeah, so they go and styling reference, color reference, start sketching. So the sketch that they produce. And yeah, so they have to show their progression. So these are the cards, and the final artwork is like this. So this is the project title called Silence. So that is the proverbs and the meaning of it. So the final outcome is in wooden. They go and laser cut it on wood. So you can see that sometimes the progress takes very different path from at the proposal stage, simply because assumptions versus the real life experience are very yielded different input or different information. Yeah, and the last one is a little bit interesting. Sorry, it's the last. Okay, this one. So then this is also a different team. Less is more. So we give them less is more. So they in Japanese culture, because less is more, Japanese house very small. So hence Japanese people is very simple. They have very few items on their kitchen, very few items on their wardrobe, and so on. So they found a concept of ma, and then they also study Japanese lifestyle minimalism. Then what they what they propose is that they will then take 7 days to live very minimal and very minimalist style, following the culture and tradition in Japan. So so this is all the research assumptions. So they do they find it very difficult. They think they assume that it will be very difficult and frustrated, and then they come to acceptance, and then maybe they will eventually reject it at the later stage. So then they think, okay, so from this, so how do we document this and how do we execute this? So they come up with concertina book, a 2-sided folded books. Yeah, so they start to research what are the stuff that they do. Yeah, so in Japan, so data collection. So this is at their hotel. So they study very small. There's a wardrobe on the right, toilet on the left. So it's very compact. They also study design elements, logos, shop fronts. Shop fronts in Japan sometimes quite very different from Malaysia. So all letterings, all words. If you look at their posters and whatnot, so there's a lot of words. It's not like us in Malaysia, it's a little bit diverse. We also have graphics, colors, and whatnot. Yeah, so that's what they observe. They also found an artwork quite interestingly. It's just on the right, it's just an empty wall with some letterings on it. Then some visuals that they run through. So they study architecture, they study interiors, papers. Yeah, so they attempt to declutter their lives. So to examine the potential positive or negative. So what are the intended objective? So for them, it's clarity of mind, better health, more freedom, less stress, more time, greater purpose, extra money, better relationships, and lifetime memories. Yeah, so how do they do it? Mental decluttering and physical decluttering. So it's mental and physical. So they will record physical change, emotional changes, social changes, print and audio. Yeah, so left is before, right is after. So they start experimenting day one. So they declutter. Yeah, so they declutter. Then they will record in audio their experience. Clothings, all reduced. So you can see these are all the clothes, bags that they bring to campus every day. So they declutter. And then they also, at the same time, continue research on the style for the concertina books, sketches, some of the content ideas that they come up with. So yeah, this is all the progress. So this is the final product. So they record, they put it in writings a little bit. At the same time, they also submit the audio documentary of their experience. So there's 2 students. So each of them have a separate output, separate reflection, separate. Yeah. So it started with in Japan where they because they were afforded a very small space in their hotel. So then they then come back and then continue another 7 days at their own space. Yeah, so that is the 3 works that I would like to show today. So now if there is any question, I'll be more than happy to take it.
Okay, thank you to Mr. Asrizal. Is there any question from the floor? You can just type in the chat room or you can unmute your microphone. Anyone's? Perhaps, Dr. Azra, you have any question before I'm asking the question? So I would like to encourage the other participants to ask the questions first.
Okay. So I would like to ask, so for this course, do the student need to go to Japan?
We don't make it compulsory for them, but we welcome if they want. So they have to fork out additional fees lah. In
So the
order,
fees, they need to cover their own?
because I do everything on my own actually. Daripada flight, accommodation, transportation dekat sana and whatnot. So roughly about 6 days, 5 nights. Now after pandemic, our main hurdle is actually flight ticket, because flight ticket is very expensive post pandemic. But recently in February, our student paid about 4,300 for 6 days, 5 nights. So what is included? Flight ticket, accommodation, museum fees, travel insurance, airport transfer, departure, because our flight is at morning, so we have to leave 5 a.m. So I have to take bus. I have to get a bus. But pre-pandemic, before COVID hit, it was cheaper because flight ticket is you can get Asia X to Japan about 1,008, to Osaka, to Tokyo. So that our students only paid about 2,800 all in, not including food. Food we don't, because they have different preference and whatnot.
So since this course is for international, right? Meaning that for this course they need to go to Japan every year ke, setiap kali ada course tu, so pergi ke Jepun ke?
Because kita nak dia orang immerse in the culture, so we bring them to countries or cities yang ada good transportation network, bus, trains and whatnot, because they be able to move on their own. Kalau pergi macam places like don't have that, for example, we go to obviously
Local ke
Bali,
tak ada?
Bali, Bangkok. We actually
Local tak ada ke?
been to Kuching actually.
Yes.
In 2018. Why Kuching? Because we have a lot of international students. So we go to Kuching, they go and study some cultures there. Because the point is they have to study the culture that is foreign to them. If I'm a Malay, I cannot study Malay culture because that culture is very familiar to me. So, so we have quite a number of international students who are not able to pay because to Japan, obviously. Then kita arrange local one. So we actually went to Kuching. We brought about 30 plus students and whatnot. So they go many places in Kuching and whatnot. So they come back. They have quite an interesting output.
Okay.
Thank you,
Ada
Azra. Okay, there is another question from Encik Alif Azrai. Encik Alif from Faculty of Art. Before that, we have questions from Encik Damian as well. Since you are dealing with 80 over students, how much time do you allocate for each pair, and how long is the process of going through their
80,
presentation?
yeah. Okay, so before the 80 is not a lot. Very recently now we are having 340. I have 340 students taking the intercultural module, but to Japan it is 74, right, Anis? That went to Japan with us very recently this year, earlier this year.
Yes.
We have 4 lecturers. We do a group, so slightly bigger groups. So about 5 person per group. 4 lecturers, so 1 lecturer handles about 13 to 14 groups. What we do presentation, we ask them to record their presentation. So the easiest way is for them to go to Zoom, get all the group members, share their screen, and then record their presentation and then submit. We also use Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams, we create a module page, and then each group will have their own specific page. So all interaction happens there. They can have their own discussion, video, online discussion, meeting live with the lecturers or among themselves and whatnot.
Okay, the second question from Encik Alif, he's from Faculty of Art and Creative. Okay, do you have any particular situation or factor that we need to be careful on when dealing with intercultural activities? Any unexpected adverse results so far?
Okay. Yep, we do. We take very seriously their proposal. For example, very recently we have students who their assumption was geisha was a prostitute, which is not. So they intend to go to Kyoto and interview this geisha, which is you can't do that. So we monitor through that. We also have an experience on site where they want to study. Anis, what was that in Harajuku? What do you call it? The people, the cosplay.
They wanted to be in touch with people who do cosplay in Harajuku.
Yeah, Harajuku.
Yeah, but unfortunately, by the time they went there, they realized it was difficult for them to engage the cosplayers on scene because they don't want to be contacted and whatnot.
Japanese actually they are very
They are very reserved, basically.
very reserved because they can't speak the language very well. Even from our experience in Tokyo University of Technology, where we arranged the session, their professors have difficulties getting their students to involve because their students are very scared of interacting with our students because they cannot speak English. But we told them it's actually okay because we want that interaction to happen and see how they overcome the communication barrier. But there is no exactly negative adverse effect so far, but it's just that. So they try to approach, but they just ignore you or they just look at you and so on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Azrizal and Ms. Anis. All right, so pre-planning is key and very important.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Alif. Okay.
Sekarang if you ask me, I plan because dah biasa macam tu je. I already know what to do. The planning takes place about 3 months before. So
I see.
macam flight, I direct contact with airlines simply because we want to reduce the cost. Because if you pay travel agent, it gets very expensive. You can actually do it very cheap.
I see. All right. So because you're already familiar with the process, so it's become easier for both of you, right? Okay. Since I'm quite interested when you mentioned about the issue, the barrier of the communication between the students from Taylor as well as the students from Japan. So how you encounter that? So I'm quite curious how your student encounter the problems with the students from Japan. So what is normally the creative way that they are using in
May
communicate?
May I answer this? May I answer
Yes,
this?
yes, Miss
So,
Anis.
referring to what Mr. Alif Zafri said, pre-planning is very important. So this is where we actually, before we go to Japan, we advise the student to look out for applications that would help them to do their research much easier, not easier, and like ease their data gathering. In this case, it's Google Translation. They have to download it onto their phone, as well as Google Maps. So in any case, it seems that even the Japanese people over there as well, they will use Google Translation when communicating with foreigners. So it's in a way we bypass the language barrier that way lah.
Yeah. Sometimes we also get translator, but we are actually quite surprised because in some of the trips that we took, our student actually managed to go and interview key figures in their research. So they go and interview, let's say they want to study calligraphy. So they go and find that particular person, contact them beforehand and say, oh, we are coming this date, would you be free? So they actually an interview. They also did, for example, the picture that I show you in Tokyo University of Technology. So they found one Japanese student who is very familiar and can be considered as subject matter expert in the topics that they're studying. So what they did, they arranged a separate interview session day after. So you go and meet at the cafe, they sit down and interview that. So it goes back to the point where when you just throw them in a very outside their comfort zone, then they will eventually find out what is needed to do. Because when we do travel also, how I do it, okay, every morning, I do briefing in the morning. So we go to wherever that we need to go. Usually we finish about 2 o'clock or earlier. Then I'll tell them, okay, this is where we end for today. You go and do your research, whatever that's needed, and then you go and find your own way back. So that forces them to actually, okay, there's no more guidance here. So what do we do? Where do we go? How do we go about it? And how do we go back and so on? So that kind of enforce the immersive experience.
Okay, since you mentioned about the pre-planning, it's the pre-planning has to be included in the proposal suggested by the students, or just like spontaneous action from the student during that time.
Not spontaneous, because before usually we go for the trip about week 4, week 5 of the semester. So the 3 weeks before is where they have to come up with a proposal, and then present, and then get approval from the lecturers. So once we approve, they already know, okay, so they go and start research. Okay, so what are the things that we need to observe there and whatnot. So it's always with a clear idea and objective of what is needed.
All right, okay. Another questions from me. Since I heard that you mentioned about you encourage the student are doing the observation, right? During the process of the experiential learning. So how you make assessment of that particular observation component of teaching method?
We observe them through the 2 criteria. Let me just extract it out. So that is, we measure them through observational and research skills, which is through their collected materials, evidence of collected materials. And then the other one is the documentation, the clarity and completeness in description and recording materials. Because I think we also get, obviously we get students that just go there and just take pictures, and just compile like that. So that is not, there's no clarity, there's no meaning behind that. Is just a compilation of photos. So which doesn't mean anything.
So means the students have to provide with the collected material and documentation towards the end of the what we call towards the end of the program.
Yeah.
So you are doing the assessment based on these two criteria, right?
For that particular task, yeah.
Okay, for that particular task. But do you did any observation, strictly observation, or we call like direct observation from the lecturers to the student during the process of they are collecting all the material? So do you do the direct observation on that?
We only during the time that we are together with the students, because some of the days we gave them, okay, take this time to go and explore and whatnot. Another method that we do also, we do reflection. So we are high on reflection, where they have to reflect in a very specific manner of what are their experiences, what do they observe, and so on. So we also, actually the both of us, Anis and I, we also have done research based on the reflection. So we compare the reflection when we assess the data, and then we come up with some results and conclusion from it.
Okay, that's clear. So
Yeah.
now we know that the observation also have their particular way of assessment, right?
Yeah.
And do you think that this teaching method is significant for your context of this course?
Very much so, because we have also, like I said, we have witnessed that the output levels and comprehensiveness is very different from student who actually went on site. Tak kisahlah dia pergi Japan ke, dia pergi mana-mana ke, tapi the point is they have to be on site, as compared to student who is just restricted to just in front of the screen and do internet research, tengok videos, and so on, do some library search, text materials and whatnot. So it's very different.
Yeah, just now you mentioned about the local context and the international or overseas contact. You brought your student to two different places due to the cost and ability of the student to go to that particular country. So whether they are going for local or for international, doesn't matter, as long as they are able to answer or fulfill the course learning outcome for these courses, right? I see. So since you mentioned about the reflection of tasks that you are giving to the student, is there any differences that you encounter for those who student go to local and international assignment?
In terms of reflection, it's roughly the same because but bottom line, the culture has to be foreign to them. Tak ada sangat lah. So in terms of reflection, dia lebih kurang sama. But again, it boils down to has to be on site.
So means there is no difference
Tak ada.
way of doing evaluation for those who are going for local and international.
Yeah, tak ada. It's the same.
Tak ada. It is the same. All right. So is there any other questions from the participants in this WebEx? If there is no question, I think that's all. Thank you very much to Encik Muhammad Asrizal as well as Cik Anis for the great sharing, insightful and informative sharing from both of you. And I hope that with this sharing actually can give you some kind of ideas. What is the experiential learning, and then what is the creative way of teaching method that we actually can practice and implement in our teaching and learning in UNIMAS. Even though we are come from different contexts of background, UNIMAS is a public university and Taylor is the private university. I think the idea in the teaching method is quite interesting, and the way of the student immerse their experience into the what we call the output of the design is very wonderful and interesting. All right, so thank you very much to Encik Asrizal as well as to the Anis. And then I would like to inform to all the participants the upcoming workshop in 27th of March 2024 entitled Augmenting Learning Instruction with Artificial Intelligence Tools in Teaching and Learning. 10 a.m. as well via WebEx platform. So with that, thank you very much to Encik Asrizal and Miss Anis, and to all the participants. Salam Ramadan. Assalamualaikum, Encik Asrizal and Anis. Thank you.
Salam Ramadan. Thank you. Thank you for inviting.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you so much.